Hello everyone, my name is Konrad Rogoz. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Tyranny. It's episode 137, Sunday, July 20th. The true topic of this video is going to be not in the title. I'm not going to put it in the title. As far as YouTube is concerned, this is just about Tulsi Gabbard and the history of Russian interference in American politics. That's it. That's all it's about. But it is This Week in Tyranny, and it is show 137. Now, 137 is the 33rd prime number. 33 is, as you know, the honorary degree of Freemasonry. It's often said that that's the highest one. Well, actually, the highest one is 32. But you can get the honorary 33rd degree. Bear with me here. By the way, that's why the English temperature system has 32 as the freezing point. You get ice at 32. And you get water at 33. At 33, water melts. And that's actually the reason for that, believe it or not. And that's because the Hermetic and the occult, it plays a much larger role in life than people realize. And just like with traditions of hidden knowledge, the true message is going to be buried. So it's going to be here, but it's not going to be in the title. And it's not going to be in the intro. Also, it's show 137, and I've always been very aware of that number. So intentionally for show 137, I'm going to do a big-ass episode. It's probably going to take me a while, and it should. Okay, I've been wanting to do that for a long time. So why don't we get into Tulsi Gabbard and what happened this week is the whole Russian collusion angle. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is the Director of National Intelligence for the United States. And what she did is she released a set of declassified files, and she made an official public statement that in 2016 the Barack Obama administration was involved in a plot against Donald Trump. It's known as the Russia hoax. Okay, the Russia hoax is all about cyber attacks and an impact on the 2016 election. Of course, the 2016 election is the one that Donald Trump won. And what was happening at that time is all this talk that it was Vladimir Putin and the Russian government that helped him get elected. Okay? And that there was election interference. I hope it is not lost on you that the same kind of claims were made in the other direction about the 2020 election. So don't be confused. Because the 2020 election, there was a hoax in the other direction. That's what the narrative was. Now, this graphic that you see here, oh, by the way, if you're watching this, I strongly, it's not that I encourage you, but if you don't watch it, you're going to miss a lot of, I'm going to be referring to a lot of visual stuff. It's a show with a lot of visuals, okay? I'm trying to make it very visually engaging because I got a lot of visual stuff to share, like the files, the actual files themselves, and later on, as we get into the other topics of the show, I'll have some images, right? But anyway, this is the first graphic I'm going to go with. This is the creation of the Russia hoax. So she made a little flow chart. Okay, December 9th, there was a meeting called Secret Russia meeting. Then there was an Obama order with the intelligence community outlining a new assessment to claim that the election was hacked. There were all these leaks. Okay, there was leaks, and then the meeting, and then the narrative came out that there was a Russian hoax that actually got Donald Trump elected. Okay. Now, this is the actual release. Office of the Director of National Intelligence. New evidence of Obama administration conspiracy to subvert President Trump's 2016 victory and presidency. On Friday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard revealed overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after President Trump won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton, President Obama and his national security cabinet members manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. Okay, this is in the months leading up to the November election, the intelligence community consistently assessed that Russia is probably not trying to influence the election by using cyber means. On December 7, 2016, after the election, talking points were prepared for DNI, Director of National Intelligence at the time, James Clapper, stating foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential outcome. So basically what happened was these files came out that said that at the time, 9 years ago, the intelligence community concluded that there was no election interference by the Russians. There were all these files released, which I'm showing now, Okay, they got some red Sharpie marks on it, and you see these are official, unclassified files. And basically, the big deal is, the big smoking gun here is that the intelligence community said, yeah, Russians didn't hack this thing, but the politicians and the media said, well, they did hack this thing, and that's why Donald Trump won the election. And this is supposed to be a big deal for some reason, which I don't really get. I don't think this is a big deal. This is just a way for me to discuss what I really want to discuss. One of the things that have always amazed me about like American politics today is that Donald Trump will still be bringing up Barack Obama's name. He said it recently, just this week, about the Epstein files. He actually said that these Epstein files, they were made up by Obama, by Comey, by Biden. And that kind of blows me away at how detached that is, because Barack Obama hasn't been the president for 10 years. The guy hasn't been the president for 10 years. But yet we're still talking about him. But we are going to go 10 years back, and this whole thing about Russian collusion, it comes back to this article right here. There were a couple articles like this one, but this is the one. Secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win the White House. You see this right here, December 9th, 2016. This is what was said at the time. The CIA has concluded in a secret assessment that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency. Okay, not to just undermine confidence in the U.S. electoral system. Intelligence agencies have identified individuals with connection to Russian government who provided WikiLeaks with thousands of hacked emails from the Democratic National Committee and others, including Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, according to U.S. officials. Those officials described that individuals as actors known to the intelligence community and part of a wider Russian operation to boost Trump and hurt Clinton's chances. It is the assessment of the intelligence community that Russia's goal here was to favor one candidate over the other to help Trump get elected, said a senior U.S. official briefed on an intelligence presentation made to U.S. senators. Quote, that's the consensus view. So, it has long been thought that there was Russian interference. Now, Tulsi Gabbard releases documents that seem to indicate the opposite. That there wasn't Russian interference, and that there was a hatchet job made against Trump. Okay, my stance on this all has held up over time because I have long maintained that both governments are in on it. These are multinational operations. Russia and U.S. are working towards the same goal, and I've long stated that it is foolish to engage in this thinking that superpowers are really working against each other. They're not. I, first of all, don't even assume that these documents are even real. They may be real, like actual documents coming from the intelligence community, but even if they are real, at the end of the day, it's just printed letters on paper. And I don't trust government intelligence documents because part of intelligence work is to manipulate information, is to release misleading and fake documents. Like, that's what intelligence is. We're talking about like spies. We're talking about military intelligence. This is the business of lies and the business of propaganda. So for me, it's a big nothing. But I want to bring attention to what Russian interference narratives were really all for. And it is mentioned here, but not mentioned with the words that I'm going to use. What was said is that these thousands of hacked emails from the DNC, including Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, were these emails that hurt Hillary Clinton's chances of getting elected. Now, what this is all about is the Podesta emails. The Podesta emails. And here's where we're going to start to get into the true nature of this video. And I know it's going to get flagged anyway. But I'm not going to water it down either, right? So I'm not going to give myself up in the title, but I'm not going to censor myself either. I really hate the censorship culture of YouTube that we have. It's so scrubbed. The language of it is scrubbed. You can damn near show dead bodies uncensored and everything and talk about all this stuff, but you can't say killed, you can't say suicide, you can't say rape, but you're depicting all of these things. You can watch people get brutally attacked, like strangers punching them from behind and all this, and beat them up, but you can't say the word, and I hate that. I hate this scrubbing of the language. So I'm gonna say pedophile, I'm gonna say child pornography, I'm gonna say suicide, And I will call out these fucking scumbags. These fucking scumbags that are doing these things to children. Remember, this is the most hardcore news show on earth. And I'm gonna, it's gonna be a vintage show. Now, the Podesta emails, what is that all about? Just to catch everyone up. This was at the same time, 2016. John Podesta was Hillary Clinton's campaign advisor. This guy's running her campaign. His laptop got famously hacked, okay? John Podesta's laptop. And it contained thousands and thousands of emails. It came out on WikiLeaks. And what started to come out is some of these emails contained weird language talking about pizza and pool parties and having pool parties with treats for our entertainment. And there is going to be this... them and them are going to be here 7, 11, and 9. This is what later became known as Pizzagate. Pizzagate was the original Russian hack. It is thought that these emails were hacked by Russians. Okay? Now, this is not the same thing that Tulsi Gabbard is releasing information about. Remember, Tulsi Gabbard is talking about them running election interference to get him elected, which includes it is about this WikiLeaks Pizzagate Podesta email stuff. It's the same thing, but it's described differently, and that's part of it. Part of it is you've got all this information coming out. It seems to be pointing towards one thing, but it's actually all obfuscated. It's actually all camouflaged. That's all part of this. And even Pizzagate, in my view, was a controlled release. But maybe we should go one step at a time. So Pizzagate became, the conspiracy became known as. Now, what the Podesta emails seem to indicate and show is that a lot of these politicians, that some of these emails were on this laptop, that they seem to be they seem to be engaging in pedophilia. This is what it was all about. This is the Pizzagate thing, because the whole idea is that pizza, you look at it as like a slice upside down, that it was supposed to visually, that symbol is visually the same as the female genitalia. Okay, we're gonna be real clear with our fucking language this episode. I'm not pulling no punches. So pizza and hot dogs were the thing. Okay, the pizza was the girls, and then the hot dogs were the boys, and there was also ice cream. Okay, this kind of a language. Okay, this is what became known as Pizzagate. Now, this got twisted and psyoped again, because if you look up Pizzagate, it is probably going to be under my video. Is going to be forcefully thrown into my description, the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which is known officially that there was a pizzeria, there was a pizza place, Comet Ping Pong, I believe is what it was, and that in the basement of this place is where some of this pedophilia was going on. That's the official Pizzagate story. Of course, that's not the real scandal. The real scandal is that these people, these politicians that are involved, are engaging in this stuff, and that there's an elite pedophile network. That's the actual conspiracy we're talking about. And this came out in October and November of 2016. Pizzagate is the original Russian hack. Now, Jeffrey Epstein, what came out later, is a less egregious scandal than Pizzagate. Pizzagate is the thing that came out. But for those that don't know, it contained things like that wink wink type of a language, like stuff that you just know it's very weird, it doesn't make sense, and it's very close to what recently got released, that letter that Trump allegedly wrote to Epstein that said, "A pal is a wonderful thing, happy birthday, and may every day be a wonderful little secret." Shit like that, that Donald Trump was writing. It was that kind of a talk. Now, I think even this, it could be partially true, but I think even this was a psyop. I think they didn't leak anything that's seriously incriminating, but they leaked enough to make the Pizzagate scandal, and they knew that it was going to come out, and they turned it into something it isn't. That's my claim. I don't think the real pedophiles in government write about pizza and ice cream and these parties. It could be true, but even if it is true, this still leads us to a misleading conclusion. The misleading conclusion is, what Pizzagate turned into eventually is this collective belief that the Democrats are the ones who are the pedophiles, that it's all about the drag queen story time saga, and it was these transgenders and these homosexuals that are the culprits. That became the story. And none of it got totally pushed back, pulled back away from nothing about the Boy Scouts, about the churches, about the police, about the military. So it was repackaged and rebranded. The elite pedophile issue has been repackaged because of the Epstein fiasco now by the Trump administration. It's happened again. The original Pizzagate thing was a psyop, and now this Epstein thing was a psyop that takes it even further away. Now, so people ask me, like, what do you make of all this? How badly Trump is dealing with this Epstein thing? Like, what are they planning? Well, this is part of it. They could have just been quiet, obviously, and businesslike, and didn't mention anything about Epstein like government usually does. There was nothing there. Like Bill Clinton said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, right? But instead, this administration didn't. And from 2016, the Trump administration leaned into the conspiracies. This was the conspiracy president. Remember, he was doing interviews with Alex Jones talking about all the things that Ron Paul was talking about, all the things with Occupy Wall Street. We're going to end the Fed. We're going to release all the files, all the conspiracy stuff, 9/11, JFK. They amplified all this talk about the conspiracies. And it was never intended that they would do anything to actually bring it out into light, just to obfuscate it. Now, what people think today in their minds, that the pedophile scandal is that some billionaires like Trump do these things, and it's like a billionaire thing, and it's some people that like young women, and that's the thing, and that is way detached from the true nature of the Pizzagate thing, which was a lot closer to the truth. Now, I saw this article that I'm going to show that frames this well. This is part of it. Then QAnon emerged. The movement, QAnon, which has been likened to a virtual cult, imagined that Trump was secretly fighting a cabal of Democrat child abusers. That's true. That's what it became. That's what the Pizzagate thing became. And that's what QAnon, which is also a psyop, became. This idea that Trump is secretly going to lock up all the pedophiles because it was John Podesta's laptop, it was all the Democratic people. That's what the narrative became. According to the Public Religion Research Institute, which has tracked the conspiracy theory's popularity, some QAnon adherents believe that, quote, the government, media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation. That quote has a lot of truth to it. That's what we're talking about here. But see, it has been worn out and warped, and now it doesn't have very much meaning anymore because the waters have been muddied so much. Continuing, Epstein-related theories are an extension of that conspiratorial worldview, just as QAnon picked up where Pizzagate left off. In parentheses, 2016, the false theory about Hillary Clinton leading a child sex ring in the basement of a Washington, D.C. pizza shop led a North Carolina man to show up with a gun. He discovered that the restaurant didn't even have a basement. That's correct. Correct that Epstein is an extension of that conspiratorial worldview. And here it shows you that what they say Pizzagate is not even what Pizzagate is. That whole thing with the guy with the gun and that pizza place, that's a completely separate thing that takes the attention away from what actually this is about. And it is true that Pizzagate was a psyop, just like the QAnon and Epstein stuff. I'm not saying everything's a psyop, but these big things that happen, these big leaks like cyber attacks, they're always intelligence operations. That's kind of part of what I want to get across, is that all the shit that you think is just normal and happening in the world, it's a fucking intelligence operation. And people think they're... and people still tell me, it would have been worse if Kamala won. And they're so far away from what we're talking about, is that every other thing you see is a fucking intelligence operation. The whole world you're living in is not what you think it is. Now, Epstein doesn't mean he wasn't a pedophile, but the global network intended to expose Epstein. That's what I'm saying. It was intended that he get exposed. It didn't really come out. They're not really trying to suppress the Epstein thing. including the intelligence community, which now, the intelligence community is headed by Tulsi Gabbard, and the intelligence community, which Whitney Webb has done extensive research on, with the connection there, which I'm going to read both of these books soon. The Sordid Union, the book is called One Nation Under Blackmail, 1 and 2. The sordid union between intelligence and organized crime that gave rise to Jeffrey Epstein. So she talks about the link between intelligence and Jeffrey Epstein, not just American intelligence, but Israeli. I think that will probably get this video blanked more than even saying pedophile, right? But anyway, I'm eventually going to read her books about this, so I won't say too much more about that. I'm going to finish up this excerpt from the article. They say Epstein is a complicated matter for Trump, since the two men were described as friends decades ago. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy, Trump told New York Magazine in 2002. He's a lot of fun to be with. Trump later denounced Epstein and said that he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. So obviously he was a lot of fun to be with for Trump. Obviously they were friends. It's all about complicating matters, though, because Trump is a psyop too, including his fake-ass assassination attempt. Which I'm going to play here. I got the video that also I saw this week, where you could see the photographers and how important the photography of it is. And you see the flag being lowered into position. I said it when I saw the picture. I saw the whole thing go down. I said, it's too perfect. It's too epic. It's just like porn is not the way that real sex is. Pornography is not really like that. It's the same with this picture with Trump getting shot in the ear, but it's just enough to see him bleeding, and it's just enough for him to be towering over these people with his fist in the air and the American flag in the background. And it happens to be right before the election. I showed this to my uncle, and yesterday or 2 days ago, and he still wasn't convinced. Like, this is what we're dealing with, and this is not a dumb guy, but yeah, people just do not see this shit. Once they like someone, once they're emotionally involved in what they believe in, they won't see evidence to the contrary. But that's why we're gonna get even more. We're gonna get even more graphic, because we're gonna talk about the Podesta art. You want to talk about a fucking buzzword? Type in Podesta art, and before I show it, I'll describe what this is talking about. This is because of the Podesta emails. What ended up getting some traction is that a lot of this artwork that John Podesta's brother owns, Anthony Podesta, depicts children being abused. And this is the whole Podesta art thing, okay? This is what became the real thing that kind of spun out of control. And this, I don't believe was a hoax. I don't believe was a psyop. The Podesta art stuff, we did that. People did that. People dug that shit up. People exposed that shit. Okay? Now, most specifically, these Podesta paintings, remember, they're not in John Podesta's house, they're in Anthony Podesta's house. It's his brother, right? But as I will get into, he's not just any guy. This is not just anybody's brother off the street. There's a lot. They own some of this weird, depraved artwork, most specifically that by Biljana Đurđević, okay? Now, I'm going to read this article that already debunks it. Before I'm going to show anything, I'm going to debunk myself, okay? Because officially what comes out is that no alleged victims have come forward and no physical evidence has been found in relation to this conspiracy, which has been widely discredited and debunked by, among others, Bloomberg, Washington Post, and the Los Angeles Times. It is also not clear how and why the social media post tied the artwork, which in itself does not serve as evidence of child abuse or anything nefarious, to Balenciaga, other than through the similarity of some of the false and misleading tropes around the two stories. Addressing the resurrected conspiracy claims, Tony Podesta confirmed that he does own some of the Serbian artist's work, but told Newsweek that the claims tying his brother to it are false. He said, "I own the work, and John has nothing to do with this," Tony Podesta said. Continuing, he says, "I get an image of Biljana's work every week from conspiracy theorists and wingnuts saying it's proof positive that John and and everybody else was involved in this ring of child abuse in the basement of a pizza parlor. John has never owned the work. I have quite a number of her paintings, he says. The wingnuts and conspiracy theorists have discovered this and decided that it's proof that I'm a pervert. It's certainly not true that John has any interest in or owns this art. I don't even know if he likes it. So, Anthony Podesta has commented on this stuff. Okay, so he says the stuff that they're saying about John and the pizza place is totally false, and it's he's not even related to this at all. And it's been debunked that a lot of the stuff that is labeled as Podesta art in these social media posts is actually by other people, and it has nothing to do with Anthony Podesta, and even Anthony Podesta may not own this stuff. So this debunking to me is I like it because it doesn't really debunk anything. It just proves the point that the Pizzagate thing turned out into a psyop, but the real thing that this artwork is depicting, alluding to, and the inclinations of the people that may be owning this artwork, that shit is true. So I'm gonna dive into the Podesta art thing, even though it's been some of it is inaccurate, what it is said on like social media, what has been posted. And I say good. I say good. That's how rhetoric works the other way, motherfuckers. That's how propaganda works. I know that some of the Podesta art stuff had like unfairly implicated Anthony Podesta. And I say good. Because we have to always climb a fucking wall of propaganda to get the truth out. We always have to bend over backwards to convince idiots of the most basic of logic. So I'm glad that John and Anthony Podesta are wrapped up in this shit, because they are close enough to the pedophilia network for us to levy these things against them and throw dirt on their name. So you got dirt on your name, motherfuckers. I'm going to bring it up again. And people are, and they're not letting it go, because the Marina Abramovich stuff, the Balenciaga stuff, it's very clear. It's very clear. It's very nasty, and it alludes to the things we're talking about. So I don't give a fuck if Marina Abramovich did some of this stuff or not. I don't give a fuck if Anthony Podesta was at one of these rituals or not. These rituals are real, and the artwork that depicts a lot of this stuff depicts it accurately. So at some point you are close enough to take collateral damage. So fuck them. And you know what? Those other pieces of art that are labeled as Podesta artwork and may not be Podesta artwork, like the ones by Kim Noble famously or Rhea Pratt, they correctly and accurately depict what goes on in this network of pedophiles, what this network is all about. So it is accurate at the end of the day. So meet Heather and Anthony Podesta. This is Anthony Podesta, the guy we're talking about, the guy whose words you heard. He's known for founding the Podesta Group. Okay, he was formerly one of Washington's most powerful lobbyists and fundraisers. This is the brother of former White House Chief of Staff John Podesta. Okay, that's his brother. This guy born in Chicago. It's a very satanic city. I'm from here. Yeah, I'm not going to get into his biography because it's not that important. He was married to congressional staffer and lobbyist Heather Podesta from 2003 to 2014. They're not married anymore. They were only married for 11 years. But this shit matters. And we're going to meet Heather Podesta now. This is formerly his wife. She is an American lawyer, lobbyist, and contemporary art collector based in Washington, D.C. She is the founder and CEO of Invariant, a leading bipartisan government relations and strategic communications firm. Okay. Virginia Law School degree. She is, of course, very rich and powerful as well. Named by GQ one of the 50 most powerful people in Washington. One of the top lobbyists. Okay. And here you can see them together here. Married with Art is this article from 2004. This, of course, is not that easy to find, but it is archived. Thank God for archiving. And it talks about their art collection, okay? It talks about their bizarre art collection. You can see Heather and Anthony Podesta here with this sculpture in the foreground, which is a Louis Bourgeois, The Arch of Hysteria. Okay, so you see basically a naked human body portrayed in an Ouroboros snake circular position. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I'll read a bit of this. A quarter century later, those prints are history, but Podesta is counted among the nation's most important contemporary art collectors. Inside the elite Chelsea galleries, he and his wife Heather are gossiped about, deferred to, and ushered towards the choicest works. All the art stars know their names. In Washington, the couple is recognized too, but for many different reasons. For very different reasons. Podesta has ridden a long career on Capitol Hill to his current perch as a top-tier lobbyist and co-chairman of Podesta Mattoon, an outfit that took $11 million in revenue last year. That's chump change. The point is these guys are lobbyists, and we'll talk about some of the people they work with. This is Tony Podesta pointing to his work, which he likes so much. And you see, currently he has collected from over 40 different artists in some depth, which is top 5 being Marina Abramović, Vic Muniz, Bourgeois, and others. So he likes this. The one that they feature is this guy, which is in a circular position. You see he's decapitated. He doesn't have a head. Now, what this is all based on, famously, is this was one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims, and this came out when Jeffrey Dahmer got arrested, Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer, that he had one of his victims in this kind of circular position, okay? The man was naked, decapitated, and in a circular way. Now, I found a picture of their house when they were talking about their artwork and their taste, right, in style and art. And you see it's a very nice modern living room. And I zoom in, you zoom in on this, and I zoom in on this, the one painting that you can really see here, and you see it's a girl, it's a female, sitting on like a bar stool chair with a tile background. Now, one of these things that you're going to see, these repeat themes, is going to be red shoes, tiled backgrounds, and empty pools, things that look like empty pools. With this painting specifically, if you zoom in on this, the shape of her fingers indicate tension. She's not at ease. It's uncomfortable. It's not known what's happening behind her or under her. The eyes indicate distress and despair. And this is a Biljana Đurđević painting. I knew that before I looked it up. I don't have to look it up because I'm going to show some of her other ones, and you see it's the same thing. You can see it specifically in the eyes and the tiled backgrounds. And you can debunk this. You could say this doesn't depict her being abused. Don't fuck around. I know what the fuck I'm looking at. This is clearly depicting distress. A lot of depraved shit passes as art, and it gives it like plausible deniability. So we're going to get into it. We're going to call their bluff, okay? Maybe this isn't anything, but this one from the same painter is called The Living in Oblivion. This one is a little bit more clearly, you see there's a drain, there's a pool drain here, a white tile background, there are some kind of ropes or hoses, okay, coming from the top, and you see a row of girls covering. I don't even want to describe it in word anymore. You know what you're looking at here. You actually should be looking at it. If you're listening to this and you're washing the dishes, put the fucking with the dishes down and look at the image, because it's important. Now, nothing against Biljana, the artist. I'm not implicating her in anything. She's Serbian, and I know the extent of violence and abuse in the 90s in those areas of the world, like the Balkan, Serbia, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, all this stuff in the 90s. I know, I get it. So if you're making paintings that depict like suffering and despair, I get it. I get why she would depict it. But then now we're talking about Anthony Podesta's got this shit hanging in his house, so that's a lot different, right? What does he know about human suffering and despair other than perpetrating it, maybe, right? Or moving funds around to launder money or conceal some of that stuff, okay? Right? We're talking about elite New York, Washington, D.C. type business. Now, these paintings, again, I'm nothing against the artists, because if we didn't have these, I wouldn't be able to make this show to make the point to show it to you. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe the claims about the red shoes, which I'll get into now. This next painting is called Paradise Lost, and you see a boy hanging by his arms. Again, you see the same tile background. You could tell this is her work, like the one that's hanging in his living room. And you see there's a pair of shoes under him that is off. Now, I first heard about this from Mark Passio, and so I don't really, as far as sourcing it, I didn't come up with this. So that's who I will give you as my source. But the whole red shoe thing has to do with the blood that is later supposed to come from these children being tortured and abused and mutilated is what dyes the shoes red, and this is the whole red shoe thing. Okay, so you see the girl wearing red shoes that I showed in his living room. That's the whole red shoe type of deal. Okay, I'm gonna go back to what I read earlier, the debunking. No alleged victims have come forward, and no physical evidence has been found in relation to the conspiracy. It is also not clear how and why the social media post tied the artwork, which itself does not serve as evidence of child abuse. I have quite a number of her paintings. The wingnuts and conspiracy theorists have discovered this and decided that it's proof that I'm a pervert. And it's certainly not true that John has any interest in it or owns this art. I don't even know if he likes it. So I've read this again. I'm repeating it because now you've seen what I'm talking about. You've seen these paintings. You've seen what they're showing. The tile background and the drain, of course, is because the purpose of tile is that you can clean it easily and hose it down easily. We're talking from the blood, from the torture. So we're talking about ritual killing here. We're talking about ritual abuse and murder. Okay, that's what goes on in these elite pedophile networks, and that's what Pizzagate was supposed to be about. But of course, it got psyoped. So that's how Anthony Podesta addresses it. It sounds good in an article. I think the article should put the paintings up and see if it still sounds the same. Now here's how I address it, right? I do not blame the artist for painting it. I blame Tony and Heather Podesta for owning it and displaying it. Not on the merit of the art itself. I'm not saying that you can have this hanging in your house. I'm blaming them for it because they are the top government lobbyists. So they are feeding off the system, and they feed the system that is intertwined with the elite pedophile network. And if you think the elite pedophile network is not real, then I don't know how you I forget his first name. How do you explain Dutroux, Mark Dutroux, Dutroux, and some of these other names? Oh, there he is, Mark Dutroux, the Belgian famous elite pedophile, which has been arrested. Forget the Epstein stuff. That's a real thing that happened. And by the way, this is a real book called Program to Kill by David McGowan, where he talks about the overlap between intelligence and military and government with serial killers. Some of the world's famous serial killers, Jeffrey Dahmer right here. So they've got a sculpture that shows one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims, and then you've got a whole book of really good evidence and a YouTube series called Program to Kill, who has like 200 episodes, in which there's all this evidence of all these serial killers having connections to government and military and cover-ups like that. We're not just talking about the Franklin cover-up and the Boy Scouts and shit like that. We're talking about also elite rich pedophiles like Mark Dutroux, and it goes further than that, of course. Okay, so my next point is going to be about how influential they actually are, Heather and Anthony Podesta. Now, this is I know I'm talking about stuff that is 10 years old, right? So it's not about them really, but that is fucking smoking gun proof, that Podesta art, and that is something to be proud of. The conspiracy, the freedom and truth community, because that is some real shit that they got exposed. I don't think they wanted that stuff to come out, and you see, that's why the Epstein thing comes out. Because now when you talk about elite pedophilia, you're going to get a picture of Epstein instead of a picture of fucking Mark Dutroux and the Podesta artwork. Okay? Now this is a press release from 2017. Heather Podesta and partners changes name to Invariant. So now this is called Invariant now. They're lobbying firm. Okay, lobbying. I haven't mentioned it explicitly. It's making deal. It's the legal way to bribe politicians. That's the definition. Lobbying is the legal way to bribe politicians to pass laws. Okay. And I'm showing you this press release because you've got a fucking quote from the president of government relations for the Home Depot. Did you know the Home Depot has a president of government relations? I didn't know. But they say the team at Invariant goes wherever they need to get the job done. David Chavern, president and CEO of the News Media Alliance, echoed that saying, "We are in a tough industry and we need tough people beside us. Invariant has been a great partner for more than a decade." So, what is the type of stuff they do, right? When we're talking about Anthony Podesta and his wife Heather, because he says it like, "Oh yeah, John, the campaign advisor, he has nothing to do with this stuff," as if Anthony Podesta is just some guy. He's not just some guy. So when you go to the Invariant website, guys, their website, I'm jealous of their fucking website because it's really well done. Like it's just a really well constructed website. Like technically constructed. It's just really good. And this is a screenshot from it. They got this picture. In DC, you're either at the table or on the menu. There are only two questions when it comes to lobbying. Do you want to find Washington, or do you want Washington to find you? If the Senate is considering legislation that impacts your company, you don't want to get the news watching Margaret Bennett on Sunday morning. We strongly recommend proactive engagement, and we have a great group of clients who agree. Here are some of them. Before I show you their client list, not the Epstein client list, but the Invariant client list, which I'm sure has a great overlap. What they're saying in this paragraph is, don't be like one of the fucking idiots who watch the news. Don't be like the fucking idiots who vote. You want to pay us to get to these politicians so they can make sure that you get what you want, so that these fucking idiots who vote for these politicians, that they're going to fund you so you can live your lifestyle. That's what lobbying is. So they strongly recommend proactive engagement, which means getting to the politicians and paying them, okay, and influencing them. You see their client list: Home Depot, H&R Block, Red Bull, Toyota, Marriott International, Navy Pier, even the damn Navy Pier in Chicago, Cigna. I hope I'm painting the picture of how involved this is, how this elite network is extensive, and how fake what you get on the news is. The Tulsi Gabbard release, the Epstein release, the Pizzagate thing, it's all fake. And at the end of the day, it's not about the Podestas, and it's definitely not about Trump or Obama. See, if they're taken out, there are so many left. And this is what people fail to understand more than anything. I'll be able to get somebody to see that the Trump assassination attempt was fake as shit. They'll understand that before they understand that it's not about these couple people. It's not about the mayor or the governor or the president. Don't think of the tyranny of the world as individual actors performing horrible individual actions. It's an ancient tradition of control that goes back to Rome and back to Babylon and Sumer and further back more. It is historical, it is lineal, it is religious, okay? It is. This is why the Epstein thing is such a fucking perfect hoax. Because what keeps the elite network of pedophiles alive is that they're not just a couple perverts and pedophiles. It's not just the Podestas. These people are following an ancient agenda. Even if you kill them all, the ideology is going to live on. They're following an ancient agenda, old traditions, like the Babylonian and Sumerian traditions, okay? The Enochian stuff, okay? We're talking about human sacrifice, things like that, okay? Tracing that lineage of power back, okay? Charles, Queen Elizabeth, King Edward, all the way back to the emperors, the pharaohs, like a religion. And Satanism is a religion. That's where it goes. So that's where it goes. But we were going to come back to Tulsi Gabbard now and put this into context all over again. Just how military intelligence and the occult are part of the same network. I already mentioned one, the good book about this, the serial killers by David McGowan, and the two books by Whitney Webb, if you want to talk about Epstein. Take your pick, okay? I got more out here. Here's this tweet from 2 weeks ago that I want to read because she kind of alludes to at least the historical tradition of America. And I want to talk about it because I'm not just talking about the past 50 years, not just the past 250 years, but like the last 50,000. Yeah, let's just read what she says. 249 years ago, our founding fathers laid the foundation for our democratic republic, establishing a first-of-its-kind country that cherishes freedom. Let me introduce this first. This is a 4th of July post, okay? So it's your classic fucking 4th of July post about how America's great. So anyway, she says it was a first-of-its-kind country that cherishes freedom and liberty for all Americans. They sought to create a government that was limited in size and power, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. As we gather with friends and family to celebrate this Independence Day, let us remember the sacrifices of those, past and present, who defend our God-given freedoms enshrined in our Constitution, and recommit ourselves to upholding the foundational principles that make America great. This is the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. National intelligence, which is an oxymoron in itself. Military intelligence is an oxymoron because intelligence is the capacity and exercise of pattern recognition, meaningful problem solving, the integration of new ideas and systems, adaptations of existing ones, and the elimination of obsolete ones. Things that the government has never done, because what the government really does is follow historical traditions of feudalism and before that human sacrifice and all this shit. So it's not actually intelligence, but how the government and military uses the word intelligence, and when I'm using intelligence in reference to Epstein and serial killers, how the military uses the word intelligence, it's information gathering. Literal national military intelligence would be to take the uniforms off, go home to your families where you are needed, and empower the populace. That would be real intelligence. Real military intelligence would be to put the fucking guns down and go home and teach your kids. And by the way, those are the foundational principles of America, what I just said. Having a distributed network of power. That's one of the ultimate principles of America, is that everyone has the power. The population actually has the power, not just the king and the nobility. So distributed network of power as opposed to being a centralized network concentrated with a central ruler or a small oligarchy. That's principle 1. Principle 2 is pursuit of individual values, as opposed to sacrifice for a collective common goal. So Tulsi talks about sacrifice. Well, originally, it's actually not about sacrifice for a collective goal. Individuals sacrificed in order to be able to pursue their individual values and goals. That's principle 2. Principle 3 was empowering the entire population with the right and ability to use force. Okay, as opposed to the military. So we're talking about guns. You see this row of soldiers with the guns? The whole point of the American nation was that all the people would be the army, and there wouldn't be an army. It would be a fighting force, but not a standing army. That you wouldn't monopolize the use of force. You wouldn't have trained killers. It's that everybody is trained and able to fight and kill for the right reasons. Those are the principles of America. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is currently the director of an organization that is completely contrary and opposite to those principles. The intelligence community. Right? She is the head of the intelligence community, which is NSA, CIA, Army intelligence, Navy intelligence, all this stuff. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, she became a state representative at 21, so she's really been a career politician, but she's not perceived as a career politician because she had a 20-year military career. Because at, I think, 22 or 23, she went into the military. And that's what she's known for, right? Now, I'm just going to say this, as inflammatory as it may be. I would say her military role is purely decorative. You know, she was just a pretty girl that got medals put on her. Okay, that's how I really feel about it. If you think that's offensive, or I'm making judgments, I'm gonna point out one of her posts from 2018 on Twitter. Hey Donald Trump, being Saudi Arabia's bitch is not America first. That's what Tulsi Gabbard says, and I agree with that. It makes a good point, right? What's all this stuff? I don't know. She should have said being Israel's bitch is not America first, but of course she wouldn't say that because she's pro-Israel, right? And that is just one of the many hypocrisies that I could point out with politicians. She's not the only one. She's one of many. Tulsi Gabbard is known for being anti-war, but now she's head of the intelligence community, which is the war machine. That is the attack dog warmonger machine. And she's always been pro-Israel, which for a government official it means you're actively facilitating taxpayer money going towards funding a continued war on a population with no weapons, no power, no food, no water, and no societal infrastructure at all. As a matter of fact, the only organized thing that there is for the Palestinians is the things that Israel controls, like Hamas. So, for the person watching this, being pro-Israel may mean you like a post, or that you're part of a Jewish community. I'm not saying my problem is with you. I'm saying if a government official is pro-Israel, they're genocide supporters. That's how it goes. So she was anti-war, famously. Now she's pro-war. A month ago, she said that Iran wasn't a nuclear threat. I said the same thing. But now she has to fall in line with the narrative, and she said that that's not what she said. It was taken out of context. Yes, Iran can develop nuclear weapons within a matter of weeks or months. That's what she says now. So just like a fucking good little dog, she got it. That's what it is. I hate to use these personal insults, but she earns the personal insults. And I don't have very much respect for her. But it's not even personal at the end of the day. It's just government officials have to be held accountable for what they say. So if you're a puppy dog bitch, it's not, I wouldn't say to you if you're just anybody on the street, but you're dealing with our lives, the lives of the people who vote for these assholes, and we have to pay the taxes because the fucking military, headed by the intelligence community and all this, would arrest you. And you would just be another person in jail. That's what this comes back to. So, Tulsi Gabbard's a hypocrite. I'm not. I've never had to take back calling somebody a bitch. I've maintained any time I've called someone a bitch. And I've never flipped my principles, so why should they? Why shouldn't we just completely clown them? So my lack of respect, it extends. It's not just Tulsi Gabbard. It extends to this broad respect for the military. I don't have a broad respect for the military. I have no respect for the military. I have respect for individuals, and some of them may be soldiers. I can have respect for some individuals who were or are in the military. But in generally, these people are not heroes at all. They are collectively, on an aggregate, making the world a much worse place. It would be like, the guys, the power slap guys, the slap fighting guys, they go across from each other. Now Dana White promotes this shit. And there's supposed to be a UFC event at the White House now, which is beside the point. But these guys that go stand across from each other and they put the fucking talcum powder on their hands and they slap each other in the face full force until one of the guys gets knocked out. These power slap guys is the organization. It would be like calling those guys heroes. That's how I see the military. Like, yeah, you guys are really hurting each other. It's got to take a lot of balls to come out there and just not even flinch while you get fucking smacked in the face. But you're not heroic. You're very stupid. And actually, it's not that it's stupid. It's just awful. It's awful, just like those pictures. What happens to those kids and those kids being, because at the end of the day, it's something precious that you received as a gift, and you're destroying it for nothing, for the most useless thing. Like that's like the biggest crime you could do. Like just senseless destruction. It would be like calling those guys heroes. So Tulsi Gabbard, those are her heroes. Here are some of my heroes, okay? People who made sacrifices for the real principles of this country. I'm going to show their pictures. Milton William Cooper. He wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse. And he had a show for a long time. He talked about all of this stuff that later I learned. I can learn this and you can learn this. It was a lot of it was thanks to him. Okay, this guy was the original guy who had a show and came on it's known famously that Alex Jones is a William Cooper clone. Okay, not a clone, but that he emulated him. Okay, this guy's the original. This guy really came out and said a lot of this stuff. Him and David Icke is another one that I would classify as a hero, but I'm not listing him as one of these because he's still alive, right? He hasn't been killed by the government. Milton William Cooper was killed by the government in 2001 when the police came to his house to arrest him. Okay, he wouldn't be taken alive, and that's Milton William Cooper. Okay, very heroic life of work, I would say, because he said some stuff that at the time was really. It was amazing to know the stuff he knew in the first place, and then even more amazing to come out and say it publicly. Next, Rosa Koire. Okay, Rosa wrote a book called Behind the Green Mask. She came out and exposed all this stuff on Agenda 21 and the environmental sustainable agenda. She died of lung cancer May 30th, 2021. So she wasn't killed by the government, but the thing is, there have been a lot of these fast onset accelerated cancers, and it's just a terrible thing, and it's beyond. I can't talk about everything in one episode, but it is very easy to poison somebody. It is very easy to give somebody cancer. That's the thing. But anyway, a hero regardless. Her stuff is, you could still see some of it on YouTube. You need to see most of it on other platforms. Same thing with William Cooper. Their stuff is on YouTube, but you really got to go elsewhere. And Lloyd Pye is a person that I also consider a hero. He died on December 9th, 2013 of lymphoma, okay, another cancer. He's famous for the Star Child skull and a lot of work about the hidden genetic history of humanity, okay, occult genetic history. This overlaps with, I would say, more David Icke and the extraterrestrial stuff, which again, beyond the scope of this, but a lot of the stuff he talks about is a lot of the stuff was accurate, groundbreaking, and really expanded the worldview, and it really coincides nicely with some of the other things, because at the end of the day, when you talk about what these elite pedophiles are doing, it almost doesn't make sense unless you bring in the extraterrestrial and historical angle, for sure the historical angle. So those are some of the real heroes. Now I want to go full speed ahead here and go into the occult, the relationship between the occult and military intelligence, because Tulsi Gabbard is the head of the intelligence community. Well, she's the figurehead of it. That's an important thing to say. She's a figurehead. She's a spokesperson. I at no point would like to make the claim that she is some sort of a high-ranking member of anything. But it's something interesting about military intelligence is that it seems to trace to Navy intelligence. This naval intelligence thing just happens to be at the core of this stuff. And I'm looking at some of the agencies of the intelligence community, right? And the first one is the Office of Naval Intelligence. So the U.S. Navy had the first intelligence agency established in 1882. CIA was 47. Some of these other ones in the 60s, And this is the thing. So naval intelligence, I know that I've come across this concept in my research before, and I would really need to dig up William Cooper, among other things. But I want to just discuss two people, two of the most famous occultists. I think it would be accurate to call these the two most famous occultists, if you talk about their influence, really. Okay? And we're talking about the occult overlapping with Satanism here. And those two people are Aleister Crowley and John Dee. And this is an excerpt from Aleister Crowley writes about a lot of stuff, right? He famously wrote the Thelema, the Book of the Law, and he has this, I forget the title of this book. Oh no, they have it here. Okay, so I'm going to reference an article, because I didn't know where to start with these guys. Crowley, arguably the most famous or infamous occultist of the last century, spoke from personal experience. Throughout his career, Mr. Crowley, aka the Great Beast 666 and the wickedest man in the world, maintained some kind of connection with one or another aspect of British intelligence, most notably the Admiralty's Naval Intelligence Branch. His case is by no means exceptional. Many of his associates in the occult realm, among them Everard Fielding, Theodore Roos, and some of these other names, also had links to one spy agency or another. So this is another article because someone wrote a book that makes this connection. Sorry, I don't have it. Okay, I'm quoting a lot of stuff here. It talks about how Aleister Crowley had an overlap with naval intelligence, that he was recruited by naval intelligence, most specifically. And this is just an article that makes this connection. I'm going to continue with that. The interconnection of occultism and espionage goes back at least to the Elizabethan intrigues of Dr. John Dee, and certainly is much older than that. For Crowley, Dr. Dee, D-E-E, was a role model in more ways than one. Occult orders and spy agencies do share much in common. Both are focused on the acquisition and safeguarding of specialized knowledge and embrace society. They don't embrace society, they embrace secrecy as a cardinal virtue. They are selective in recruitment, and members are bound by oaths of silence and loyalty. Sorry, this is real choppy reading, okay? I had a lot of stuff. I didn't read all of it. I didn't rehearse all of it. I got a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to go back just a bit. Both the occult orders and the spy agencies, they focus on the safeguarding of specialized knowledge. They're all about secrecy as their cardinal virtue. They are selective in their recruitment, which means they recruit only the most elite. And these members are bound by oaths of secrecy, okay? Just like the elite pedophile networks are bound by oaths of secrecy. So this is the overlap that I'm drawing here. Back to the quoting. Hopefully I won't fucking butcher the quotes, right? They operate as much as possible outside public view or even outside of public awareness. The pursuit of occult knowledge provides an excellent training ground for espionage and kindred intrigue, and vice versa. As Crowley's literary creation, Sir Anthony Bowling, put it, investigation of spiritualism makes a capital training ground for Secret Service work. One soon gets up to all the tricks. Now that's mostly about Crowley and a little bit about John Dee. Now John Dee, he was from the 1600s. John Dee was England's top scientist at the time. Imagine like a super genius super spy. He was recruited by Queen Elizabeth I, and he developed entire navigation systems that would help England dominate the world. Like, really influential guy. And his code name was actually 007. So this guy is the original fucking James Bond. Okay? John Dee was not only a mathematician, he was a scientist, he was an astronomer, right? So he had all these navigation systems. We're talking about the Navy, right? We're talking about navigation. And he wasn't actually an occult practitioner. He was a fucking magician. It is said that he cast a spell on the Spanish Armada in 1588, which sends these huge waves, and a storm crashed on their ships. So when there was the whole war with the English Navy and the Spanish Navy, one of the decisive swings, the decisive thing that happened, was the storm happened to hit the Spanish Armada, and the English Navy won. Now we say today is that it wasn't a spell that he cast, but he had advanced knowledge of the weather, right? But his impact cannot be downplayed, right, and understated. So this guy John Dee, he was naval intelligence before naval intelligence was a thing. And people wonder and theorize all about the occult network of the world, and why they act the way they do, and why do they put things out, and why they halfway expose themselves, and they do the same things over and over again. They are about tradition and symbolism, because the big secret of all of the occult traditions, like the big secrets that they all know, the hermetic secrets, is basically this: a life is magical. Life is fucking magical, and there are ways to control reality. You can control the outcomes of life and make it do all these things. Okay, and that has to do with rituals and symbols and all this stuff. That's why they use them. Those are the secrets so closely guarded. And there are also things, part of the secret is there are things you can do that will mark you for universal destruction. So it's like the laws of karma in effect. Laws of morality, okay, of karma, fear, psychological and philosophical principles. Those are the secrets. And that's what they guard so closely. It's actually not anything crazy, but it's like this big secret that almost is put out in all the Disney movies. That has to be put out into the open, and that this is what they say. This is what Goebbels said, right? Or whatever, the propaganda, Hitler's propaganda guy said, that you have to make the lie big enough, and then they will believe it. Also, when you keep a secret, the secret has to also be out in the open. But you better know when they get their fucking 32nd and 33rd degrees and the 360th degrees. This is the stuff that they're learning. And AI today is just what John Dee infamously did in the 1600s. He attempted to communicate with higher beings through a medium. This is the type of shit he did. AI is just the same thing. Like, science then and magic then is still being practiced today. Magic today is propaganda, mass movements, what is it called? Mass hypnosis, right? Yes, the artificial intelligence, the information gathering. Yeah, that's magic today. And let me tell you, with John Dee and Queen Elizabeth, that is part of that same network. Queen Elizabeth I was surely a pedophile and a murderer of children, and John Dee surely participated in those rituals to some extent. And you could tell me, I know you could say, how can you say that? You don't know that. You weren't there. And I would just say, stop for a second to look at how much sickness and suffering and injustice goes on in the world today, and ask yourself, what other explanation makes sense for world history other than this, than these people who are psychopaths, who trace their lineage back to extraterrestrial power, and they hold the worldview that humanity is a genetic experiment made by the Anunnaki, and that humans were slaves from when they became slaves, and that the human part of humanity has to be subjugated and put into a control system, and they have to become like the angels, like the hyperdimensional or Anunnaki beings that are gone, and that is who is going to control the world. And ultimately, it's a suicide mission at the end of the day. That sounds like a crazy worldview, but what else makes sense? Like, how does a World War I and II even make sense? How does pedophilia even make sense that it happens? Like, why are people prone to addiction? Why is humanity the only species that seems to be suicidal and work against itself? How come all of these other creatures are living in concordance and in perfect harmony with nature, and nature seems to be man's enemy? Why do we suffer so much, and aging is such a torturous thing, seemingly? Like, what else makes sense other than that? So, from ancient cataclysms to the origins of religions, to the way that we can have so many miraculous things in the world, and yet we all run a fucking hamster wheel every day. And some people live like gods. Most people are struggling. Many people are starving. And on top of it all, we, like me, who's bringing this worldview to you, we also have a natural law of morality and a metaphysics that actually makes sense. Actually makes sense, and all the hundreds of different scientific and spiritual disciplines merged into one, and we actually have an explanation for why the universe is the way it is. Not only the evil things, which I kind of am focusing on in this episode, but also the beautiful things. And I'm the one who's wrong, but I can explain everything. And not to sound like my friend Dan Alexander, but at a certain point you see all this shit and it's all corroborated by knowledge. by historical data and information, and it all fits into place. But I'm the one who's wrong. And people still wonder about the maritime law thing. The maritime law thing. How else do I explain it? Like, this is so William Cooper and David Icke and some of this research to the origins of government power today goes back to not just Rome, but the Phoenicians, right? And these mercantile civilizations, and this idea that what is government traditions and powers today actually goes back to maritime law, and that is why the birth certificate is a fraud, right? And this is all just a corporate name. Yes, all this stuff is true. But the reason I bring up naval intelligence, and then I'm finishing with this, is because the water is so important. The ocean, the water, the maritime law thing, yes, it is so important. It is key to this whole control system, but it's more symbolic than anything. It's about the significance of water, like what water really is. Water is the true power of this world. It doesn't just symbolize, knowledge or nourishment or love. It's all of it. But what it means to these people who control people, and you talk about the origins of civilization, right? The first civilization, when you talk about gathering a city, it has to be by water. So all of these are either on a river or a coast. And if you can control the water, if you can put a ship by the water, it's like a lion hanging out by the fucking watering hole. The gazelles have to come to the watering hole, to the lake, and that's where you bite them by the fucking neck. It's very simple. These are just ancient predators. These are human predators. Not only the kings, the military, everybody, the feudal lords, the landowners. This is how they've done it. They've done it by controlling water. It turned into the navy, right? But that's the true power. And it's also a hallmark of the ruling class to move freely. So this is why they're the shipbuilders and the navigators. They're the ones who discovered America in the first place, right? People were already here, the Native Americans, but you notice they killed them off, right? So these are the colonists. These are the ones who sailed, the sailors. This is the Admiralty law, maritime law tradition. Because they move freely while the people are locked in the cities. You think about running water, and that is that is freedom. The reason, a lot of the reason I'm free, like physically free today, is because I got a toilet about 20 feet away. If I didn't, my life would be completely different, because I'd have to find a way to shit somewhere, and I'm not built for that. Okay, like a cat. It's not. It wouldn't be that easy for me. Okay, where am I supposed to get a leaf? What if it's what if it's cold? What if the leaves are dry? It's hard to talk about this without going really off topic with this shit, but just think about it, how important running water is. Water is everything. You can live like about 3 days without water, right? That's the thing. I talk about how I tried to go on a fast and go without drinking water, like no food or water. After like a day, you can't do anything. You become totally useless. Your head hurts, you can't sleep. Dehydration. It's like humans can be so powerful, but if we just don't drink water, we can't even exist. So they move freely on the water. They use the water. That they have all the money and resources, while the common people have to live in toil and drudgery and work the land. That's the whole thing, working the land, right? Well, imagine these guys with their chariots and their ships, right? Symbolically, this is what I'm talking about. So picture a guy like Epstein now. If we got to talk about Epstein, the guy has an island, and because he has all this money, which, of course, back in the day, we're going back to history and tradition again, the ones who sailed were the ones who made the money, because you could ship this stuff. Fuck the Silk Road. We're going to sail around Africa, and we're going to make all this money with trade. So this guy has all this money now because he's a billionaire. So he has this choice of the kind of women he wants with all the physical features he likes. Think about how valuable that is to men, and how much you would have to work to get that experience. Lifetimes. You wouldn't get that much money. The people who have the big money in the world have the money because they're part of this historical network. Feudalism has never gone away. The same kind of ruling class still has the money. So these are the billionaires now, and they could do it with the snap of a finger, the people that you call the 1%. Well, that's the same difference as moving by ship over the sea or moving by land, right? Think about how long it would be a land journey for me to walk somewhere, and I could just sail there, sail around all the land effortlessly. And on top of that, the ocean has always been associated with the unconscious, the emotions. It's just the hidden, like that's the source of all potential energy, like the sea of energy that is beneath the surface. That's what the water is all about. So, as I talked about the relationship between the occult and naval intelligence and the pedophile network and Tulsi Gabbard, finishing with the principle and the main takeaway, it's the key is to be amphibian. The key is to be amphibian, like Marines. We have to live on both land and water, both the sun and moon. So today's July 20th. This week we're gonna go from Cancer to Leo. Cancer symbolizes the moon. It always has. This is the water, the swings of the water. Now Leo is the king of the jungle. Of course, he rules the land. He rules the sun. It's going to be the middle of the summer. The key is not to be one or the other. And you see this occult system, they are not one or the other either. So you see that all of their symbols, all of this solar symbolism, but at the same time, so the solar symbolism is up in your face. So this is, the Buddha, Jesus. I don't know how else I can even give examples of solar symbolism because it's everywhere, right? From every logo to the Washington Monument, the Egyptian obelisks, and then the Star of David. All these symbols are solar symbols, and a lot of the traditions of government, they go back to being, solar symbolism. But behind closed doors, there's always the lunar symbolism. There's always the water, right? The maritime admiralty stuff. They actually do both, because that's one of the secrets of this world is that it is magical, and that there are two forces that have a constant flowing magical union. That's love. The answer is love. And love is not to give yourself over to something and accept what I'm saying and to go and campaign for something. Love has never been about forsaking yourself and becoming something else. Love has always been about two separate things that come together to create something new. Creating something that wasn't there before. To move life forward toward a better future. That's true magic. That's my takeaway. Thank you very much. And that was episode 137. I'm tired. I'm going to do a lot of editing. I'm going to put all the fucking images and videos. It took me a long time to do this. Thank you for being with me. I tried as best as I can to make that shit real fucking crystal clear. Yeah, that's it. Bye, guys.